All right, so Abu, is that your name? Abu?
Okay. Okay,
Yep,
moderator, please
Pak
your
Abu.
time.
Okay. Okay. So thank you very much. I would like to start. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Then I would like to say welcome to the honorable speaker, Professor Marta. How are you today?
I'm good.
Okay. So well, okay. Thank you. So it's a pleasure for having you today, Prof. Okay then, and a very warm welcome for all the participants who comes from different university and or different various backgrounds. So thank you very much for spending a time and joining today's lecture. So our topic today is about the role of Pancasila in the transitions from the modern Western worldview to a system worldview. Okay, well, so my name is Vivek Aulia. I am as one of the lecturer from STAI Majene, West Sulawesi. Then before we are going to start our lecture today, so I would like to inform you about Professor Marta. Okay, so well, Prof. Marta is a professor of philosophy at Leon College in Battsville, Arkansas. She received her MA and PhD in philosophy from Bryn Mawr College. So correct me if I'm wrong in spelling, Prof.
That's fine.
And then okay. She has published 12 books and 44 book chapters and journal articles. So that's great admissions. And then her article have been published in journal in the United States, Greece, the Russian Republic, the Czech Republic, Italy, South Africa, Australia, Indonesia, and China, and many more. And I believe that there are still many provisional admission that she has got. Okay, so before we are going to start, let me explain some information. So for the first session, we last for 50 minutes. Maybe it's about 30 minutes for delivering the lecture, and 20 minutes for question and answer sessions. And then the second, if you have any question for the speaker, so please use the chat box on the platform, or you may raise your hand. Then please be aware for your microphone because you may turn your microphone for avoiding interruption during this lecture. Okay, so without further ado, maybe time is here, Prof, for delivering the lecture. Time is yours. Thank you.
Okay. So did you say this is a total of 1 hour or 2 hours?
Um, how about for result? It's about 10 hour or what? Yeah, it's
Maximum 2 hour,
the Zoom.
maximum
It's
2 hour, 2 hour maximum.
maximum
Oh,
2 hours, sir. The Zoom is unlimited time, Prof.
the Zoom is 40 minutes or
Unlimited, unlimited. This Zoom is unlimited, Prof.
Unlimited, Prof.
okay. Well, okay. What I'm
Yeah,
going to
but the
do.
maximum. Okay.
All right. So I'm in the process of writing a paper about Dr. Ahmed Sia Mauri. Is that the right pronunciation? Anyway, he's the Mohammedia. And how many of you belong to Mohammedia? Okay. Are some of you NU? I'm just wondering because oh gosh, cancel. Okay. Okay. So how many of you have heard of Dr. Marif? All right. So anyway, doesn't matter. He is a prominent intellectual in Indonesia, and he wrote a book called Islam, Humanity, and Indonesian Identity. So in his book, he wants to integrate Islam with humanism because that's Pancasila. And then he wants to integrate that with Indonesian nationalism. And so that was the main theme of this class. And so what I'm going to do is start out, I've written a 30-page paper about it, but I'm not going to do the whole paper. I'll just do part of the paper today, and I'll do part of the paper as we go along. So there'll be a number of sessions where I'll just be sort of going through this paper. And his ultimate goal is to develop a curriculum to teach to Indonesian Muslim students at the pesantren or schools funded by Muhammadiyah, but he really wants it to be integrated with NU, and he wants to come up with a curriculum that the NU and Muhammadiyah leaders could agree on, so that the next generation of Indonesian Muslims will be trained in Islam and humanism, humanistic Islam. So I spent my career, okay, so I'm just going to explain to you how I happened to come to work with a lot of Indonesian scholars, why I'm at the point I am today. And I hope that you understand that there's this integration between the work that I've been doing for 40 years and the work that all my friends in Indonesia are doing. My friends teach at Islamic State universities, including Ishmael. And I'm working on a curriculum that integrates Western Greek humanism and systems thinking. And I will explain to you what I think systems thinking is. And then I think Pancasila is based on systems thinking. And then the Indonesian friends I have who are working on their curriculum, they're developing one for Islam that's humanistic. And then I can add the Greek humanism, and together we can come up with a model that fits with Pancasila, because it fits with all the traditions in Pancasila #1. And then it also fits with #2, and then 3, 4, and 5. So when I first read Pancasila, which was in 2012, I was struck by how Aristotelian it is. So it's very consistent with Aristotle. And I had done a lot of work on Aristotle and how his view describes the underlying worldview of all of Greek culture. Greeks have the Olympics, the Delphic Oracle, they have tragedy, they have Homer, they have a whole lot of stuff. And the way they met in the marketplace, their rituals, their religious rituals, their collective cultural rituals, all of these are tied to a certain worldview, which is systems thinking, which is compatible with Pancasila. So ultimately, all of our goal, the goal that we all have together, is to move forward to create a global civilization that's based on the systems paradigm. Because right now, we still have the modern Western Enlightenment paradigm for knowledge and for nature and human nature and culture. And that paradigm is destroying the earth, and it's destroying developing countries' ability to develop in a sustainable way. And it's destroying the US. I mean, it's destroying everything at this point. So, that's what I want to show you, how all of these things ultimately come together. And each class session, I'll give you a little bit, a piece of that puzzle. But I think I'll start out with the first section, the introduction of my paper. And okay, I got to go up to page 1 here. I don't know how I got so far down. But it was amazing when I read this book, and I just felt like Mr. Marif and I are soulmates. Like, we have a very similar sense of where we want to take our nations and the shift in worldviews that we think intellectuals, teachers for the next generation, and leaders need to develop in order to move humanity forward. He wrote the book when he was 70, reflecting upon his life, but he focused on the importance of the new paradigm to develop a system of Islamic education in Indonesia, because Indonesia is a democracy based on religious pluralism and humanism. And so Mr. Marif's question is, has Islam, embraced by the majority of Indonesians, run out of energy to build a strong and healthy democratic system? And that's a really good question. And I think he has a very good mission, because Indonesia does need to develop this and to maintain its democracy. Because right now, at this moment, democracies are faltering. And I have another book that I'll refer to, and maybe a month from now or so. It's called Democracies Divided, and it's about the problem of polarization throughout the world and how it's undermining democracies. And some of them are falling into dictatorship, authoritarianism. And the book has 7 case studies. So it gives general trends in the introduction, and it gives 7 case studies. And the United States and Indonesia are 2 of those case studies. And then it concludes with some more overall trends and also remedies, how to solve the problems, how to prevent our countries from sliding into authoritarianism. Now, I'm 70 years old also. So when I read that Marif was writing this when he was 70, he recently died. So in some sense, this paper is my tribute to him and to Indonesia and Indonesian Islam. And so I'm trying to carry on his mission, but it's also really been my mission. So in my case, I had never heard of Indonesia. I knew nothing until 2012. And so I was almost 50 before I'd ever even heard of it. Or let's see, 50, actually 60. I was almost 60 years old before I even heard of it. So, but when I read it, I instantly recognized, this is what I've been working on, but I didn't know enough about Islam to be able, I knew Islam had a humanistic foundation because I've been teaching Aristotle's humanism and linking it to the life of Socrates in Greece, Jesus, Sermon on the Mount, Confucius Analects, Buddha, Gandhi's humanism, and Muhammad and Islam. So I knew there's a basic foundation, but I didn't know that there was a whole country that was based on religious pluralism and humanism, and that country had more moderate Muslims than any other country in the world, even more than the Mideast. I had no idea. And so I was really excited to find this out, because in my life, I was in the United States, and my country, like Indonesia, has no official state religion, but I had been raised Christian, but my church was very tolerant. I came of age during what's called the ecumenical movement in the early 1960s. The Pope said, that Catholicism should change and it should become more humanistic and pluralistic. So that's the way I learned my religious tradition. And when I was in high school, I read about this perennial philosophy. There is a philosophy underlying all the different traditions. So that was what I started thinking when I was 17, 16. And when I went to college, I read about the Greeks. And I thought, wow, okay. So in America, there was a big tension between humanists who would think of themselves as secular, maybe atheist, maybe agnostic. But I had friends who were humanist, but not going to church anywhere. And then I had friends that were connected to different religious denominations. So in my life, I used the Greeks to be a bridge between those. And so later on, a few decades later, I read about systems thinking, and I thought, okay, that's the direction humanity has to go. The number one issue for me was the environmental movement, the destruction of our environment. So I knew 55 years ago that this was going to be the most important issue for humanity. There were lots of other problems in the world, but this one was not going to go away, and it was going to get worse and worse. And I knew we had to change our way of thinking. We had to change our way of looking at the universe and the natural world. And we had to change it from a paradigm where knowledge, the purpose of knowledge, and this was the modern Western paradigm, the purpose of knowledge is to exploit nature. We gain knowledge of nature in order to change it, manipulate it for human well-being. So that's Francis Bacon. He wrote a book called The New Organon. And so he's very explicitly rejecting Aristotle's, because Aristotle's work was called the Organon, the works. So for 350 years, we've been using our scientific knowledge to exploit nature for human material well-being. And we're destroying ourselves. And Indonesia is really suffering for this. Their deforestation in Indonesia is a terrible problem. The exploitation of Indonesia for its material resources, and Indonesia's entire history has been about people coming there to take their resources. But now it's ratcheted up. It's gotten worse. And climate change is a huge issue, and Indonesians know that. And I think Indonesians also have an intuitive sense that God does not want us to destroy the creation. And so one of the main pillars of ancient Greek humanism is that we have a place in the universe. Our place is to understand the universe. And then we can understand how to fit ourselves within the universe. So the Greek model of being a good human being was included building a sustainable culture. All right, so systems thinking today is really concerned with educating children from when they're very young in ecological literacy, thinking about the biosphere, thinking about ourselves within this context, and changing the way our cultures function. So that was the first step towards systems thinking, but there's many layers of systems thinking that I think I'll get to over the course of this semester. But my first step was that I made that transition from humanism to religious pluralism and humanism. That was my perspective. And long before I read Panchasila, but I had worked out this worldview. And then when I read Panchasila, I thought, wow, this is great. Okay, so that's what I say here. Now, Mr. Marif, at the beginning of his book, he talks about learning history. Why does he want to study history? Why does he want to study Indonesian history? Because he has a mission, and you need to know history in order to articulate your mission, in order to anticipate obstacles, in order to move forward. So that's what he says here, history with a mission. And for him, clarifying the nature of Islam, the nature of humanism, and how they together can be the foundation for Indonesian nationalism is critical. So getting this clear will be the foundation from which Indonesians make choices and govern themselves. Another reason to study history is to gain wisdom from the past, to inspire us when we study what people did right, as well as all the ways they got it wrong. So he says history is a critique of when we slide off the rails that we've collectively laid. So it's a bridge that joins the past with the present and shows the way to the future. So what Marif wants to do is weave together these concepts of Islam, Indonesianness, and humanity, and then and also look at your past, which I'm doing with America also, in an honest way, admitting the mistakes, admitting the corruptions. And that's what obviously I have to do because my country is backsliding also. So both of us have to re-articulate our vision, which is humanism, religious pluralism. We have to look at our weaknesses. We have to admit our mistakes. And then we have to try and educate the next generation so they will understand the world in a way that will preserve the democracy. They will avoid listening to a leader who manipulates them using religion, using intolerant religion to polarize the public. And when the public is polarized, they become unstable. The society becomes unstable. And then someone who wants power just tells the people, I will take care of it for you. I will bring back unity. And then he takes over and he makes things worse. He just takes all the power and money and helps his friends and his family, and everybody else suffers even more. So this has happened over and over in history. And I study the history of how strong men have arisen, how democracies have fallen into authoritarianism. And I want to educate my students so they don't do that. And we really might reelect Trump. So next year is really, I don't know how many people in the rest of the world are surprised by this. I'm not surprised. Americans really need to be educated better. But Indonesians also, just because they're a developing country, they can slide. They haven't had as many years of democracy. So that would make it even, more likely, or they just have to constantly be vigilant about avoiding falling into authoritarianism. So we're in this together. I do want you to know that you shouldn't think of me as I'm from a developed country and you're from a developing country and my country is more evolved. This is not true. It is not true. Emotionally, human beings, when they're born, they have instinctual drives, all the same ones, and they get raised to either integrate those drives. So the drives are pleasure and aggression. So people seek pleasure. Well, that's fine, but they have to do it in the right way so it doesn't undermine civilization. And human beings protect themselves, right? They have to act aggressively for self-defense, but that can get totally blown up. And a society should, in general, reward people for cooperating and marginalize people who are excessively violent or who recommend violence. So having a lot of money has nothing to do with being able to control your impulses and avoid violence. So I honestly think that Indonesians, their custom, for example, of having their children sleep in the bed with them for 4 years or something. That's what my friends told me. I think it's great. I think the children grow up really calm, really trusting. I mean, this is not necessarily true for every Indonesian, but the custom is that. Whereas in the US, we have a tradition that kids are born wanting to do what's bad. We have a lot of parents that are constantly aggressively treating their children in an aggressive way, which makes them defensive and tending to overreact. So I don't think at that root, in the root of our instinctual life, I think all of us have a lot to teach each other about how to habituate children so that they love virtue. They want to be virtuous and just, and they want to get along. So, that's what I want to say at the beginning, is that we all have the same mission. And Mr. Marif says right at the beginning that the 5 principles of Panchasila are consistent with Islamic theology. So he is going to work on Islamic theology and systems thinking and education. And I'm working on passing on the Greek tradition to intellectuals in any country, really. I would like to be a cultural consultant where I consult with intellectuals, no matter what their prior, their cultural worldview is. And we try to create a model related to systems thinking that we can move forward with. Okay. So, do you want me to stop there for a little while, or do you want me to go on?
Okay, Prof, just go on, Prof.
Go on? Okay.
Yes, Prof. Okay, well.
All right. Well, Do I have until 8:30 or how much time do I have?
For the presentation is about 30 minutes, and for 20 minutes, it's a question and answer, Prof.
Okay, I have 8:23 right
Okay.
now. Oh, so it'll be about 10 more minutes.
Okay, Prof.
Okay.
Okay, well, go.
Well, so I will give you first of all the belief in God. So this is Panchasila, and the idea of God has to include all those traditions, and I know it's been expanding, and that's fine with me, right? So when I read that, I knew that the founders, like Mr. Sukarno, they had studied in the West, and they know the Western ideology, the political ideas are about human rights. So my Declaration of Independence is everyone's born free and equal, and they have rights, and the purpose of government's to protect your rights. And my country's ideology was very much Enlightenment, the Western Enlightenment, based on knowledge. So, but my founding fathers were very, very concerned with preserving Greek humanism, the humanistic tradition, because they knew people have to have those virtues in order to behave as citizens. They have to have a very educated, mature view of what their rights are. And they have to work together cooperatively. It's not supposed to be selfish. It sounds selfish, but our founders were very worried that it wouldn't, that would destroy it. They knew that. So they wanted to educate Americans in Greek classical humanism. They also liked Confucius Analects because they thought those are the same virtues that we need to cultivate in order to preserve a democracy. All right, so okay. So the history, Western history, is filled with people who have declared war on each other. They've slaughtered each other. They've massacred each other in the basis of religion. So religion had been used as a weapon in the West for centuries. And so that's why our founding fathers left religion entirely out of the ideology, okay? And they presented it as purely secular, all right? So what they taught the immigrants coming into the US were from many different Christian denominations. They were from denominations that were anti-science, but our founders were in favor of unifying science and religion. So that's a humanistic religious. So religious pluralism and humanism, every tradition mentioned in Panchasila is a branch of Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism that can integrate with science. Okay, so, but our founders would not put religious pluralism in their declaration because of all the wars. So the way our founders did it was they told people, you can believe anything at church. You can have intolerant views at church. But when you are acting as a citizen and you have to make decisions about discrimination, about education, about healthcare, about the business world, hiring people, firing people, all that, you have to treat people as equal and you can't discriminate. You can't use religion to discriminate. And so I think even though our document is written very differently from Indonesia's document, that both of us have this problem of one of the issues as our countries lose their democracies is the rise in narrow-minded interpretations of religion, intolerant religion. So in the US, there were Christians who came to the US who were intolerant, but they were not allowed to make decisions about the law. And the people running the legal system and the educational system were very vehement to teach humanism, but secular humanism. In their minds, it's secular humanism when you're a citizen, when you're going to public school, and then you can do anything at church. Well, in Indonesia, they're trying to develop a curriculum that's both the curriculum for the public schools mentions religion, but it's religious pluralism and humanism. And that's fine with me. I think that can work, but especially if you use the Greeks. All right. I did want to say, boy, this will take, the whole semester to get through all these ideas, but I did just want to mention that one of the classes I will talk about how I did not learn this, and I feel cheated out of an education because the Western tradition was not taught honestly because it was missing a chapter. After Aristotle, okay, the Greeks developed their culture, and then Alexander went and conquered the world, and he set up the Roman Empire. Well, then in 529, Justinian declared the Roman Empire became Christian in 300, 4th century, and then Justinian decided that the pagans were rotten, they were awful, and so he burned the books and killed. There was big war between pagans and Christians. Well, then the pagan intellectuals fled to Persia and the Mideast. Well, then Muhammad, Islam rose, and there were a lot of people who were carrying on that tradition. What they did was they learned Greek science, Greek math. They learned all the whole tradition of the Greeks, and they were developing it further. They were taking it further. They were discovering the Greeks made some mistakes, or they were just expanding on it. And then they had these traditions of intellectual Islam, humanistic Islam in Damascus and what's the capital of Iraq? And I can't remember. Anyway, the two capitals, one for Sunni, one for Shia. And then they also started a culture in southern Spain where the rabbis and the Catholic priests and the Muslim imams translated the Old Testament and New Testament into Arabic. And they started a tradition of religious pluralism and humanism in southern Spain. So when the West started to have its rebirth, Renaissance, they called it, the way I learned it was, Aristotle's works were discovered and the Greeks were rediscovered, and we got out of the Dark Ages and we got to the Greeks. That is not true. Okay, so this tradition that had been developed in the Mideast When Aristotle's works were discovered, actually they were written and they were translated into Arabic before they were translated into Latin, because Arabic was the language of high culture, that, the highest intellectuals, the greatest humanists, the greatest religious pluralists were all writing in Arabic. And, nobody told me that, and I feel cheated. But anyway, now we can tell the story better. And so there is a tradition of Islamic humanism that unifies science with Islam. So it's a very long-standing tradition, and it's a great tradition. So, all right, where are we? Okay, let me I have 5 minutes about where I'm going. I'm going with this. The principle number 2 is the notion of humanity. And then I will talk about, I think I'll talk about humanity, the two different, the views and how they can converge. I explain how they got split. That has to do with the West, the Western tradition, because the Catholic Church co-opted Aristotle and integrated it, except that when the scientists in the modern era, the scientific revolution, actually the discoveries made then could have been integrated with Aristotle. They really didn't disagree with Aristotle, or Aristotle would have given a bigger context. But the Catholic Church was threatened, and so we have a history of splitting science from religion. And that history, we're still dogged by it. It's still corrupting our culture. And it's also our cultural tradition, as you know, was the source of colonization. It was the justification for colonizing other countries, for exploiting their resources, for thinking of ourselves as superior culture. So you do need to know the mindset in order to know why you've been the victim of colonialism, but also it was false. We shouldn't have thought that knowledge could save the world. We shouldn't have thought we could build a whole culture on knowledge, but we need wisdom, and we always needed wisdom to guide our knowledge. So that's a view of humanity that has wisdom. The capacity for wisdom governs knowledge. Number 3 is both of our countries have unity and diversity. We both have, our founders thought it was a positive thing to have diversity. Aristotle thought that also. And then the number 4 is inner wisdom. So that's super Aristotelian and super Greek. And so then I talk about the model of Aristotle there and how it leads to that kind of wisdom through deliberation. And then the last one is that the social justice, where the government owes citizens education and healthcare, but then they're responsible to use their education to help lift up their fellow citizens. Now, Aristotle had that, but Western intellectuals do not do that. And they're separated from the common people, and they have jargon. And this is a very, very serious problem, I think, for maintaining a democracy. So I argue that Indonesia has a better philosophy. If you link it with systems thinking, it's really, it can make a big contribution to moving forward. Indonesia also has been a great supporter of the United Nations and their sustainability development goals. And if you just look at Pancasila, you can see why. because that philosophy is really makes a huge contribution to the UN effort to create a global sustainable civilization. So that's where I'm going. And, you know, there's way more to say, but just 1 week at a time will do it. So, I'll open it for questions. Is that right? I talked about, right?
Okay, Prof. It's now is a question and answer sessions. Okay, so from all the participants, it's the explanation from Professor Marta. So I would like to invite for participants to asking. Okay, well, to Abu Ali, Pak Abu Ali, please, if you wants to ask, please, please speak directly.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Our
Yes.
Honorable Professor Mata, I'm happy to be with you. I have a question. Before that, Islam means peace. Islam means peace, and then our Prophet Muhammad SAW, as far as I know, he is the level of humanity. So humanity is number one. We should have good mindset. Being humble is necessary. So you and others, we are brothers and sisters. So the world is our house. So if you come to Indonesia, I will pick you up at the airport. I promise you. Yeah, as far as I know, I live in Jakarta. So my question is, what do you think about our Prophet Muhammad got a label, the label of humanity? What do you think about that? Thank you very much, all of you.
Well, actually, here's how it works. In Greek philosophy, when I read Plato's dialogues without reading analytic philosophy and deconstruction and all that stuff, I just read it. And I traveled to Greece for 15 summers, and I just said to myself, who is Plato? Like, what was he trying to teach us? All right. And when I just threw out all the scholarship and just read about the culture, and then I talked to my Greek friends who know the culture, they really liked my interpretation. Okay. So my interpretation is Socrates is what he's talking about. Okay. He is what justice is. He is what courage is. Okay. And so that there was an incarnational doctrine in the Mithra also. Apparently, my colleague told me in Persia, but okay, so Jesus is the incarnation, right? He is the living word. So then Muhammad. And so, you know, I think it's so much more alike than different. You should not declare war because you said Muhammad and I said, you know, Jesus. So my whole thing about humanism is there is a list of what I call classical virtues and the model of the way of life. And so they have way more in common than differences about, you know, I mean, it just, to me, none of them and no God would want us to kill each other because Muhammad is, as opposed to, you know what I mean? If you can agree with me on that, then we're on the same page. Yes.
I agree with you 100%. Thank you.
And again, Indonesia has so much to offer because, you know, what do we hear about? We hear about Islam. Oh, you know, it's this horrible religion. It's all about war and conquest, and it just isn't. And so there are more Indonesian scholars working on just creating a whole scholarly base for moderate Islam, for this kind of Islam. And that's why, you know, I like working with you. I mean, I've published a lot, but I haven't published in university presses in the West because I don't agree with them. And they don't even try to understand the ancient wisdom traditions. They just rule them out as pre-scientific. And then, okay, so the latest movements in systems thinking, I hope will also help you, Mr. Ali, because you can get, because what Mr. Marif is trying to develop is an integrated Islamic education that integrates science with Islam. Is that at least that's what he writes about. We need it integrated. And if you do read systems thinking, that it gives a lot of data about the sciences, how chemistry is changing, how biology is changing, and then even the medical profession is changing, the mental health profession is changing. So they're all changing in the same direction. So that would give Indonesia a way to have an Islamic integrated education. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you. I would like to meet you.
Yeah, all right. Okay. Let me know when you come to Indonesia.
Well, the trouble is, I can't come there. I don't know if I can ever come again because I had to go home for an emergency the first time because I couldn't breathe. I really was having trouble with the air pollution. And then the last time I came there, I got dengue fever.
Yeah.
I'm a northerner and my body likes cold and the heat, the humidity, the air pollution and the mosquito-borne illnesses. I don't know if I can come back. It makes me so sad.
Yeah. Stay with us and then welcome to Indonesia University. I will be there.
You teach
Inshallah.
at the
Thank you. Thank you,
university?
yeah.
Wait, do you teach at the University of Indonesia?
I am a member. So,
Do you know Gugun? Do you know Gugun Gumilar?
yeah, I know.
He's my friend. He's my
Oh,
old
yeah.
friend.
Yeah,
I helped
welcome.
him with his
So,
dissertation.
do not stay at the hotel, yeah. Stay at our clubs, inshallah. Thank you, Prof. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Abu, for your questions and nice introduction to Miss Prof. Marta. And thank you for Marta for your answer. Okay, well, so is there another questions for Prof. Marta? Hello, for another participant, or if you want to ask and you can't speak directly, you can ask on the chat box. Okay. Hello, for another participant. Is there any questions? Okay, Pak Aktobi Gozali, please.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm new here because I just joined this meeting for the first time, and I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Aktabi Ghazali, Prof. Beck Marta. Thank you for your good presentation in this session. I have a question. As you know that in Islamic history, maybe you have. I'm sure that you know about the Islamic history. In the second century of Islamic history, Islam has good achievement from enlightenment. Let's say in second century, but after the Islamic Muslim, after that time, so many Islamic countries left behind in science and knowledge. Maybe you know, so
Yeah,
many.
I do know that.
Yeah.
I do know that.
Yeah. I want to know more about that from your view, from your opinion. Why so many Muslim countries left behind in science and technology so far, and of course there are so many countries has good achievement in science and technology. Maybe you have certain views about the lack of Muslim society. You get the point, Prof?
Well, I do, and it would be
Okay.
a historian. It would be
Okay,
a
okay.
historian that would talk about the economic motives, the political motives. And I know that there was a big conflict where
Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. The second one, as Pak Abu said that Muslim itself meaning peace. Okay, the meaning of Islam is peace. But we know that in Middle East, there are the war so far in the Palestinian and the other countries, Afghanistan and so many countries. We call it, let's say, Muslim countries. From your views, what is wrong? What is wrong? What's wrong about the phenomena, such a phenomena? Is it because of the doctrine of Islamic doctrine, or the other factors that war cannot be stopped until now? Maybe
Okay.
I want to hear you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you,
Again.
Prof. I'm so sorry because my English not good. Yeah,
It's
thank
fine.
you.
It's fine. It's way better than my Indonesian, okay? Okay, so the point, okay, this is where I look at the trends in all the religions. Like this happens with all the religions. And if you look at the history of Hinduism, it should be tolerant. Look what's happening. If you look at, but in that case, I think Muhammad would be just agonized by the split between Sunni and Shia, which happened right after he died, right? And that really corrupted the spirit of Islam, I think. I think it degenerated into a kind of tribalism. And that whole area has really, tribalism is a horrible problem. But it's a horrible problem in every society because people's identity and their sense of security gets caught up in belonging to a certain tribe. And that's why, again, philosophy and humanism says, look, we're all human and we all have these instincts, and tribalism is just a false way of trying to be secure, but it doesn't work because ultimately, whenever you have us and them, and you have war just leads to more war. And so that's part of the problem right there, that split between Sunni and Shia. And then another part of the problem is the way political leaders will use a religion to destabilize their societies so that they can say, okay, everybody has to go and listen to me. Does that make sense? It's corrupt. But the key is that it isn't just any kind of corruption, like all these traditions can be corrupted, and there's the same kind of patterns in the way they get corrupted. And that's why I like Greek culture, because, if I could tell you the stories of those tragedies, you would die. You would just say, oh my gosh, how did they know? Maybe I will. I'll talk to you about one of them. And there's just, they just understand these patterns over and over. It's so amazing. And whenever I teach this material, I can, even I even went to China and to Russia in 2010 and 2011. And I was telling them about Greek humanism in China. And when I was growing up, China was, the enemy, communists, they're evil. And I'm sitting in front of a bunch of students and who were in this transcultural program. And I'm talking about Athens. And this girl, she raises her hand and she says how Athens lost its democracy, right? How it got corrupted. She raised her hand and said, don't you get depressed sometimes? Because she knew exactly, they knew. But I mean, and I was in Russia too, but now, of course, it's degenerated. And now we're all back to the same kind of stuff. But that just makes it more important that Indonesians and that countries where this humanism still exists speak out and they just say this is false. It's not human nature. It's not the human condition. Anything we do that continues to destroy the natural world violates any, religious tradition or humanist tradition. You can't keep treating nature this way. And does that make sense? Does that help? What did I?
Okay. Thank you for your answer. Thank you, Prof. And
Well,
the second one,
okay. I haven't read a lot of books. I've read some books really thoroughly. That's what I do. And so I read a book about the southern Spain, this culture that was started because so in Damascus, or I think it was Damascus, that the war between the Sunni and the Shia, and one of the families killed off almost the entire other family, except one young man escaped, and his mother had been a Muslim in Morocco. And so he knew there were Muslims there, and that he went to southern Spain. That's where if you look it up, Sevilla and Granada have these very Arabic, beautiful, I think they're churches, but obviously they have a real Muslim influence. They're called Moorish. And okay, so if you read the whole history of that effort at the translation project, that toleration, you'll say, okay, when this person was the king, it was fine. And then when this person became the Pope, it was fine. And then the next Pope goes, and he becomes intolerant because he has his own agenda, and that's what happened. Obviously, when the Ottomans came and they were the enemy, well, that's the only story I got was this animosity. But the whole time these intellectuals are working. And so there is other stuff that was always going on. And so when people write the story of right now in human history, we have all this animosity, between the Russians and the US and China and the US and Israel and Palestine. Okay, but there's intellectuals persisting in saying, no, humanism, religious pluralism, classical virtues, this is who we are. All of this stuff is socially constructed. That doesn't mean everything is. That's not true. We have a basic humanity. That's how you know when a society is corrupt, is that they lie about life and they get power by lying about it and by forming institutions based on those lies. Does that help? There is truth beneath all this garbage. That's why I didn't study history, because history is mostly one kind of ignorance, it's all about ignorance. And I wanted to know, wait a second, is there some truth that you can use to evaluate each of these countries? And you can. And the United Nations also, it has this doctrine of rights, but actually when they're evaluating a society as just or unjust, they use a model called capabilities. And Martha Nussbaum, very prominent intellectual, she argued in her book that that's actually an Aristotelian model. So have you heard of Amartya Sen? he started the capabilities. Anyway, she was living with him for years, and that's when she said, oh, this is Aristotelian. And so if I can show you that the UN and their sustainability development is Aristotelian, and then I can, so is Indonesia's Pancasila, then you can go, yeah, that's why we support the UN. We are basically our constitution or our culture is based on the same view of humanity as the United Nations. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, makes sense.
Okay, it makes sense, Prof. Thank you.
And I've
It's
published
good.
some stuff. So I've actually published some stuff. If you are writing something and you want to refer, you want to have scholarly support for what you do, I do have that stuff. But I'll tell you another thing that makes it really hard. All of you have to publish in Scopus. Scopus! And Scopus. And Scopus is very, very modern and postmodern, and it just drives me nuts because it isn't humanistic and it isn't systems thinking. And it's so wrong to keep forcing people in developing countries into this paradigm that is destroying everything. It just really drives me crazy. Does that make sense though? Okay, so I will tell you one more thing is that I belong to 2 organizations and they have given me permission to be the editor-in-chief of a journal and a book. And one of these organizations is Scopus. So I want to work with Indonesians and they can be the main author and I'll bring in the Greeks. We can publish 14 articles on Scopus journal. Bravo. And then the other one is the Catholic University of America out of DC, and they are applying for Scopus. And I think they'll get it because they're very prominent. So that would mean I can help 30 Indonesians get a publication in Scopus and tell the rest of the world about Indonesian Islam and about how it links with systems thinking and with Greek culture. So, but okay, so it looks like you all understand the Scopus problem.
Okay, so thank you for Prof. Marta. So, is there any additional question for Pak Abu and Pak Aktasi? Pak siapa? Is there any
Ghazali,
additional
Obi
question?
Ghazali.
Oh, yeah, Pak Ghazali. It's enough, or do you have any additional questions? No more?
For me, it's enough. So far, it's enough. Maybe
Okay.
our friends, the other.
Okay, maybe for another participant, is there any questions? Because we just have a time 1 hour maximum, and the time is will up. So is there any question from another participant?
Well, students, students can ask me something, or I actually, as a teacher, I always like to ask the students.
Okay, so feel free. Yeah.
Okay, so what is the name of your program? What is it that the students are studying?
There are from Islamic education, sir. Prof.
Islamic education?
Yes, Islamic education.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everyone that wants me, that wants to, all the students should tell me why is it that you could have done a whole lot of other things in your life, but you chose to do this? I want to know why you thought it was that important to you. Because you could probably make a lot more money doing something else. So you have some reason to do this. That's what I would like to know from students.
Okay. So is there any another participant who wants to ask? No more? Okay, Prof. I'm sorry because our time is up. It's just 1 hour maximum. So yeah. So thank you very much for your great explanation today to this lecture. And then how to say
I
so
think
see
next
you
time
for
I'll do,
the next
next, okay, so I have a question. Would it be better for me to just do a PowerPoint next time instead of reading
It's
the
better,
prose?
yeah, it's yes, Prof. It's better if you show your PowerPoint to make the
Okay,
students more better understand, maybe, Prof. Okay, Prof.
okay, I'll do
Okay,
that next time.
okay, Prof.
I
Okay,
have
so
a
thank you very
question.
much, Prof, for our.
Okay,
I have a
Okay, okay,
question.
please, Pak Abu.
How do I get your books?
Okay.
well, do you know Jarut? Um, well, okay, I think I can send them to you, actually.
Thank you.
Oh,
I will send
actually,
you my books.
no, I know, actually, I know how you can get them. Sorry, I forgot. I posted them on ResearchGate. Do you know ResearchGate? And I posted them on academia, whatever.
Hmm.
Do you know those two places? I posted about 50 things. Is that Abu Akbar? Can you help Mr. Ali? Do you know how to do ResearchGate?
I
Yes,
don't
Prof.
know.
I do, Prof. I can help him.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
But you can always
So thank you.
contact me too. You
Yeah,
can send
I
me.
want
Why
I
don't you
want to
send
read
me?
your books.
So why don't you send me your email in case you can't get them on the ResearchGate, okay?
Okay.
And I'll also forward it to Jaru because he wants to publish a book of my essays that he's published on in his journal. And so we'll see, we'll see.
Yeah,
Sounds
thank you.
good.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Uh, Prof, can we download it your book in academia? Can we
What?
download your book in academia, Prof? Can we download your book in
Yeah,
academia?
you can. Academia. Okay,
Okay.
one of my publishers is a really nasty man, and I don't want to even ask him. And I just did excerpts, but the other ones have told me open access permission, so I've posted those. I think all the ones about Indonesia, Pancasila, all of those are on there, so. I have a YouTube channel.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Thank you very much.
YouTube
I
channel?
do-
YouTube channel?
I have a
Okay.
YouTube
Oh, yeah.
channel.
Wah, ya.
Okay.
Oke. Moderator
Okay,
nanti
let's-
kasih tahu ya.
Oh, yeah.
let me
Maybe you can share your YouTube
write
channel,
down,
Prof.
yeah.
Okay, I
Please
have
chat
checked
box.
it.
Where's the
I have
chat?
checked the curriculum vitae that you can check the YouTube channel of Prof Marta in Beck Ph.D. Philosophy. She
No,
has
here,
with.
let me write it in here.
Okay,
It's
please, Prof.
Dr. Martha Catherine Beck, Greek philosophy. Okay, so there's that one. And then I have another one that has my classes. So I taught some classes in Bangladesh to a bunch of girls from Southeast Asia. And I don't know, the students might be interested in that one. And let's see. And so that one's called, you have to put in my middle name because there's a very famous Martha Beck, but she writes self-help books and tells people they can do anything they want. And I write tragedy. about people make mistakes thinking they're doing good. And her stuff sells like hotcakes and nobody wants to buy my stuff. Nobody wants to think about tragedy. Which I think is
Okay,
It's
thank you,
funny.
Prof. It's really nice.
it's funny, but
Okay,
it's not
really
funny.
nice. Okay, Prof. So it's really nice presentation today. So sorry, Prof, because our time is up. And then for the participant, maybe you can subscribe the YouTube channel of Professor Marta.
It has
And
a
then subscribe.
playlist that has Indonesia. It has one playlist of Indonesia stuff. So.
Okay, Prof. So I have to that our virtual today give a significant implication for our campus quality and students quality. So thank you, Prof. Marta. Once more, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for all the participants. So I think that's all for our meeting. So see you for the next meeting. So I would like to end this meeting by saying Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and bye-bye.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Thank you.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
Thank you
Prof.
very
Take
much, Pak
care.
Marta, Bu
Yes.
Thank
Wiwi,
you.
Pak
Bu.
Abu,
Bye.
Pak Bosan. Thank you
Assalamualaikum.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, everybody.
Oke, Bu Wiwi, terima kasih Bu Wiwi, Pak Zainuddin sudah mengawal
Siap,
kelas
siap.
kita. Insya Allah masih ada 14 kali lagi pertemuan dengan Prof. Marta, dan mungkin di tengah-tengah sesi nanti kita ada beberapa tamu, ada profesor dari Indonesia juga, Prof. Sadri AR, dari BPIP, ada juga nanti Ph.D. student dari Harvard University, Kak Saleh Muda, nanti juga akan membersamai. Oke, baik ada semua. Terima kasih atas partisipasinya. Saya harap tidak bosan-bosan untuk tetap konsisten mengikuti kelas kita ini. Ini upaya kita, upaya